Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to join me to craft today. I am Lynn Lilly. I'm a DIY and a crafter, and today I am here with one of my favorite brands, Tulip. So I have grown up working with puffy paint and just making crafts my whole life. So this is a favorite iconic brand of mine, and I'm excited today to share with you two backpack crafts. So it's back to school, whether we like it or not. The kids are heading back. My daughter is going to preschool next week. So it's time to start thinking about some of those fun crafts that you can make with your kids or for them to get them excited about back to school. So we've got two backpacks today, and I'm going to show these to you. So we've got a fun unicorn name backpack, and you can always substitute the name for any kind of fun saying. And then we've also got this graffiti one, which I'm going to show you guys this. I really think this is cool. And if you haven't used fabric spray paint before, you guys are in for a treat with this guy. We're going to do this one second because it's a little bit messy. So we're going to start first with our unicorn backpack. So if we can switch to the top down camera. And as we're getting started, if you want to type in the chat where you're watching from, we'd love to do some shout outs later. I'm here in my studio in Atlanta. So tell me where you're watching from. All right, so to start for this one, we're going to be using two Tulip products. So we are using our rainbow and neon set, and I've got them all out here on my table, all laid out. And I don't know about you, but I love all these fun colors. So you can mix and match between your rainbows and your neons, which is what we're going to do today. And then we've also got our fabric markers. All the products I'm using today are fabric. So they are fabric based, made to be washed. They are waterproof. So great for kids, right? Because we know kids get things dirty. So we're working on a white canvas backpack. I've got two here today. I want to show you the blank one. Very simple. You can get these anywhere. You may already have one that you can upcycle as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a white one to start with. It could be last year's backpack that gets some new life. So to start with our first step, I'm going to use a pencil. I like to sketch out what I'm doing first, just because I sometimes mess up, right? So it's always nice to have those pencil marks to go by. So I jotted out my daughter's name, Isabella. And you can put anything there. Now, I know some people don't like to put names on backpacks. So you could put a word like inspire or smile, something that's going to inspire kids every day. So there's always an alternative. So you're going to write out whatever you want in the middle. Then I drew my unicorn horn at the top with my pencil to get started. And then our unicorn needs some ears. So we're just going to sketch out our ears. And I'm just going to do the outline of them, and we'll come back and fill them in a second. And we'll do some details and some fun little flower crown accessories on the top, but we can do those freehand. Now, we also want to do some eyes because our unicorn has to be able to see. So we're going to do some wide U's right here. And all the products that I'm using today, of course, can be found at Michael's on online or in store. All right, and then we'll have two little nose holes right there and a little smile. Okay, so here's the fun part. You get to pick out your colors. You can do anything you want. I'm going to start with my purple, and I always like to have a paper towel handy, just to make sure that my dimensional fabric paint is flowing. So I start right here, just like that. Always nice to have a little scrap piece of paper or something handy. You want to start at the top so that you're not going to end up running your hands through any of it, especially if you're doing this with your kiddos. And we're just going to outline, and you'll see these slip ones are great. You get this nice detailed point, and I'm just going to draw some nice little lines right in there. Now, our ears, we can get creative with it if we want to do a color, or we can do white. So we're going to do the outline of our ears, and you'll notice that you don't even see that pencil after you run over it with your fabric, your dimensional fabric paint. If you guys have been a big fan of Tulip dimensional fabric paint, tell me what has been your favorite craft that you have ever made with it. I would love to know. I have these great memories. So I had an art teacher growing up who had a son that was the same age as me, and all throughout elementary and middle school, they would have these great birthday parties, and we would make puffy paint t-shirts as the favors, and I loved it. That's a favorite childhood memory of mine. So I'd love to know yours. Type it in the chat if you've got some. All right, so before we move on to the name, you want to do some type of little mane, right? So my unicorn is going to have a flower crown name. So to make my flowers, these are super simple. I do 2 U's interlocking one another, and I'll bring this up to the camera so you all can see it a little better. And I will add just a few around it to create a little rosebud. Okay. And maybe I'll do another one over here like that. And while I'm adding some flowers, Hope, do we have some shout outs?
We have Michelle who's watching from Canada.
Hey, Michelle from Canada. All right, if you guys haven't given us a shout and told us where you're watching from, please do. Okay, and then we'll come, let's use some yellow. And I'm gonna add in some other shapes of flowers. So these are super simple. Your kids can do a rainbow. If they want a rainbow mane, they could do a rainbow. So the creativity is up to them. And I like this as a project to get them excited. So maybe kids aren't super excited that summer is ending, but this could be something fun to get them in the mood to go back to school. I'm gonna come back in with my orange, and then I'm just gonna add some little detail lines. And then we'll come back in and we can always add some leaves and some vines to fill in. We'll do a little teeny tiny rosette right there. Now, I would probably spend a little bit more time doing some details, but for time's sake, we've got to get through 2. So last but not least, every flower crown needs some greenery. So we'll do maybe a little leaf right here, and I'm cognizant of where I wrote my name. So that's why we put that name there so that we don't write over it. We leave some room. Just draw some leaves. Okay. Next, we're going to pick a color for the name. So your kids can choose whatever color they want. I'm actually going to do blue. And you want to trace out name or whatever saying you want. So if you picked a saying, and so if you're doing this with your kids, it's also helpful to go ahead and write out that beforehand so they can just trace it, especially if they're just getting used to writing. This is a good practice to trace. And then we'll grab some black for our eyes, and you'll see how quick this project is. So this could even be a last minute project that you decide to do with your kiddos right before school. You'll want to let it dry, depending on where you live. If you're in a humid community, sometimes anytime you're working with any type of paint product, take a little bit longer. But I find that this is dry in just a few hours, and give it, 24 hours max before it's heavily used. So last but not least, we're going to make our little nose holes and add a smile. Now, to finish off our backpack, there's a couple different things that we can do. We can even add more detail. I'll show you on the one I have finished, the detail I added. And then I also have a bucket of trim, I like to call it, my bucket O trim, of all of my trim that I've gotten from Michael's. You can take some trim, and if you want, you can add, so using my scissors, and I've got my Aleene's Fabric Fusion here as well, which is a fabric glue, again, which is washable. So once it's dry, it can withstand the wash. So when the kids get something on the backpack. So finish it off. If you want to add a little flair to it, you can always add some trim, or you can make some fun things like tassels, which I'll show you in just a second. So add some trim, let it dry. And the palette is yours. You can add whatever you like to it. But simple as that. I mean, we made that in, I think, 11 minutes. So a really fun last minute idea for your kids to create their backpack. Now, I've got one more here. Here was one we finished. So check out this guy. So I added a few more details to it. So I took my puffy paint here and went around the edges. And then I'm going to show you how to finish off with my fabric markers in just a second on this one. So give me a sec to clean up. I'm going to set this guy aside to dry. So do we have any shout outs?
We have Marie who says that she used puffy paint to make t-shirts in college.
Oh, Marie, you used to make t-shirts in college with puffy paint. I love it. Doesn't it just have some fun memories? It's one of those things that I've kept with me. And it's been fun to create projects as an adult and then also share them with my daughter too as she gets older. Okay, so I've got my finished one here. Now I've got my fabric markers. So this is my set of, I believe, yep, 20 are in here. And you've got all the colors of the rainbow, which is also nice because they correspond with your slick dimensional fabric paint as well. So I'm going to take a pink, and I always, again, test mine. So I've got some paper down. I want to see what my color is. It's a light pink. So you can see I colored in my ears already on here, but I can come back and do things like color in these flowers. Make sure you guys can see. Yep. So you can color in your flowers and add a little bit more detail to it. And you could even do some flowers in your fabric markers as well. So up to you. Can even take our green and we can color in some of our leaves. So you can see how nice and bright these fabric markers show up, and I'll get it closer to the camera for you so you guys can see. How fun is that? Do you guys like it? Do we have a question? I think I saw a question come through. I can't read the whole thing from here.
Do these paints and markers work on plastic or leather, like those sturdy backpacks, or is it best to stay with a canvas bag?
So I would recommend it's best to stay to a canvas bag. We've got our Tulip team watching, so I'll refer to them if they think it's going to work on leather. So we'll get back to you with the answer to that in just a second. I would say if you're going to work on like a plastic, you want to work on something that, especially with any type of fabric paint or fabric marker, that it's going to absorb into the fabric and bind with it. You're not going to have that ability to bind when you do have a plastic. And we'll get back to you on the leather in just a second. I think Jackie's going to give us the answer. But that is backpack number one. And then I added some frillies to it. So I created some tassels with my extra trim. So you can take little pieces. These bundles of trim that I got from Michael's have all different kind of shapes and sizes. And instead of just doing a traditional tassel with yarn, I just cut some small pieces of this, folded it over, and wrapped a piece around the center to create a tassel. And I'll bring this up closer so you guys can see it. So this is a little fun frill to put on, and you guys can customize the colors as you see fit. All right, did you like project number one? If you did, we always love your feedback. You can tell us in the chat. All right, project number two. I told you, if you have never used fabric spray paint, you're in for a treat. So what I'm going to do is give myself some room here. And a couple notes, you want to make sure that you are working in a well-ventilated area or outside. You also want to make sure that your surface is covered. So I do have some craft paper down on my surface for overspray, because remember, we're working with fabric paints, right? So they are permanent. So we're going to take our blank backpack and, okay, so we've got our blank backpack. You'll want to put something in between. So if you're worried about your colors bleeding through, I don't really care if it bleeds through to the center or inside of this because no one's going to see it. If you're doing this on like a t-shirt, you'll want to put a piece of cardboard, a piece of paper, or wax paper in between your layers just to avoid any bleed. Now, once I get my backpack in place, you're going to think about if you want your straps to also be covered in paint, you'll leave those out. If not, you can fold them back behind. Because it's spray paint, it's just like working with regular spray paint, except this is a fabric base. So you have some control, but not a ton, right? So this to me looks like graffiti, which I think is super cool, especially for our teens and tweens. So for this, we are using the Tulip ColorShot Instant Fabric Colors. So I'm going to hold them up so you guys can see them. And I've got my teal, my neon pink, and my purple here, but there is an assortment of colors really for anyone. So these are just some favorite colors of mine. I encourage you to let your kids pick out their favorite colors. All right. You want to make sure that you shape them really well before getting started. Whoops, don't drop them. Shake them all really well. And if you're working with kids, put on an apron on them. You can put some gloves in your hands if you do not want to get your hands colored, because it will come off eventually, but remember, it's permanent. So we're going to start. I always check my spray just to make sure it is flowing properly. Again, I have paper down, so you have a piece of cardboard or something you can spray on. Now, we're going to start about 6 to 8 inches from our backpack, and we're gonna go lightly. And we're having a graffiti look with this. So we are doing just small spurts of paint. Okay, so a couple lines here, a couple lines there. And we're not done with the paint. So I do a little at a time, and then we'll come back in. Okay, and make sure purple. And we do the same thing. How cool is this, right? It's so sad. It's like one of those crafts that's so satisfying. So I do recommend that this is done by your adults or your older children. So this is a better craft for our teens and tweens. Adults, if your younger kids do like this, this could be something you could make for them. So we're gonna come in with our teal. And I'm just gonna keep doing these light little skirts all the way around. And then I'll come back in with my pink until I get the color I want. So you can keep going until the whole backpack is covered in color, or you can leave some white. So leave a little more teal. Hope, do we have any questions or shout outs?
Not right now.
All right, cool. Did we get our question answered?
No.
Okay, so I think I may have seen Jackie respond. Marie, if you still need an answer to your question on if the fabric markers work on leather, let us know.
Yes,
I think we did. Okay, perfect. Cool. Just like to make sure everyone gets their questions answered. All right, so you can keep going. Now, you want to let this dry in between coats. So if you are going to do a second coat and you want to add more color, let it dry for about 30 minutes in between coats. You're going to need a few hours in between till you can actually use it, and I would give it about 24 hours afterwards. It is washable. Wash it by itself. I always say that when you're using any type of paint, wash it by itself for the first few times. You want to be safe. Okay, so check it out. How fun is that? It almost has a like tie-dyed graffiti look. And then if you want, and it's actually almost pretty dry. Like it dries super quick, but you wait if you're going to add additional ones. And if you're going to flip it over and do the back, wait at least an hour. I would say, just because you don't want this to stick to anything. And again, do it on your covered surface. But even though mine's still a little wet right now, I'm going to show you how you can have some fun personalizing it. So coming back with my slick, and this works great on top. So I'm going to write my other daughter's name. Again, if you don't want to do names on backpacks, you can write whatever you want. So this could be like peace, love, anything that your kids want. You can write a name, a saying, have some fun. Again, you would want to wait till it's dry. I'm doing it wet just to show you. And then your kids can have some fun adding some detail. Check out this one. So I did a little bit of a lighter coat on this guy. And then I came back in and did some more detail. So added some more detail with my dimensional fabric paints across the top, and then glued on some trim using my fabric fusion. And then I just made some regular pom-poms and a tassel. And I'll show you how easy it is to make a tassel with yarn, because you can teach your kids how to do this as well. So we're going to set this one aside to dry for just a second. I'm going to show you a quick little tutorial. So take a piece of cardboard. This can be cut off from a scrap box that you have. And we want to take some yarn. So this is how you can make tassels for them to put on their backpacks. So wrap that yarn around your piece of cardboard. Now, you can choose however wide you want your cardboard to be based on how long you want your tassel to be. This one is about 4 inches, but you can do it smaller or bigger, depending on how big you want it to be. Same thing with wrapping it. So you can determine how big or how full you want your tassel to be. I think I probably went around almost 20 times here, probably more like 25 now. Then when you're done, you want to go ahead and cut that loose end right there. And we'll cut off another little piece. Okay, set that aside. And we will pull up the yarn we just wrapped through and push through that second piece that we just created. We pull it to the top. We tie a knot. Tie it twice so it stays nice and tight. Okay, and that's going to hold all of our yarn together. And then we slide it off our piece of cardboard. Okay, stays together. We that part that we just tied will leave up like that. We'll take another additional piece of yarn. And this creates the head of our tassel. So what I like to do, make sure that's nice and pulled up. Start it. You don't have to start it in the middle because you want to get as much yarn to wrap around as possible. So we're going to tie it right there, nice and tight. Okay. And I'm going to do 2 knots, and then I just wrap around a few times to create that head. And you want to leave enough so that you can tie another knot at the end. So if you wrap too much and you need to go back, you can. Okay. So you want to leave enough to tie a double knot. And then if you do have extra, you can always just trim it off. Then your last step is to take your scissors and cut through the loops. And you can do a little at a time, depending on how sharp your scissors are. You might be able to get through all of it. Cut your loops, and then you can give your tassel a haircut if needed. So if any of them are a little uneven, you can always trim it down, or if you want it to be a little bit shorter, you can trim it down as well. And then you can tie this to the zipper of your backpack. It's a fun little add-on, quick little craft, and you can teach your kids how to make those. And they may have fun. You could make banners with those. You can do tons of things. All right, let's switch back to our forward-facing camera, and I'm going to show you guys these backpacks again. So let me get them up here. Hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. It's always fun for you to see the details, but then you get to see me at the end. So as a recap, we did 2 backpack designs today using our sets of, so we've got our Tulip dimensional fabric paint. This is our rainbow and neon set. And then we also used our fabric markers. And if you need any links to these products, you can ask for them in the chat. So we created our unicorn. Oops. Oh no, that was the wet one. Where's my dry one? Oh, look, I didn't even mess it up. Here's my dry one. Let me grab this one. Here we go. There's my dry one. So just like that. And again, you want to let it dry before you play with it like I just did, because you'll get it on your hands. But I got lucky and didn't mess it up. So check this one out. And it's nice and flexible once it's done. And remember, it also is washable. And we added our detail using our fabric fusion. So our fabric adhesive works great. Again, washable. So that was the first one. And then the second one was our graffiti, which we used our Tulip ColorShot. So this is our spray fabric paint, which is again also washable. So, and then we added some detail and a name. You can put whatever you want on there with our dimensional fabric paint. So 2 fun crafts. I would love to see if you guys make these, or even if you just take this idea and run with it to decorate your own backpack. Please make sure that if you do share it on social media, you use the hashtag TulipColorCrafts and also make it with Michael's and hashtag Michael's Classes. We love to see your projects. And as always, you can shop all these products at Michael's online or in store. All right, do you have any last minute questions or shout outs, Hope?
I do not.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And as a reminder, you can always watch the replay. It should be up in about 24 to 48 hours on michaels.com/classes and on the Michaels YouTube. So you can come back and check it out if you need to revisit it or watch the tutorials again. All right, friends, be kind, happy back to school, and try and inspire someone today. We'll see you next time. Bye.